Hello, and welcome to Becoming Relentless. I am your host, Tom Alvarez. Happy to be here with you today as we embark on this journey of self-discovery, growth, and transformation. Hello. In today's episode, I'm going to talk to you about something a little bit different than the past episodes. Being that today's episode is the 10th episode, I wanted to do something a little bit different. I'm going to talk to you about my career and the things that I've done along the way and the experiences that have shaped me into the person that I am today and the person that I am becoming. For over 20 years, I have worked in the design space, from software to signage to TV graphics, even video games. It's been an incredible ride along the way. I've worked for many different companies like EA Sports, NBC Sports, AAA, Accenture, and others, just to name a few. When I first started my career back in 2002, I was designing signage for a company in New York. That company that I worked for had big name clients like Chase, Merrill Edge, and many other big financial firms. That job taught me a lot. One of the things that it's still true till this day, whenever I am designing something or working on something, I tend to do it very meticulous. With the drawings that I create and the designs that I create, everything is measured and pixel perfect. Because in that job, every design that I worked on, every technical drawing that I worked on had to be to the 64th of an inch. And it was such a perfect drawing. They took it and brought it into the machines to create those signs. I did that type of work for about 5 years. And there's a fun fact about that job is that I was in charge of designing a proposal for the 9/11 memorial. And that was really cool to know that even though that the project that we proposed did not get picked, it was still something cool to know that I took a part of that. During these jobs, I learned about web development and web design, not because it was a prerequisite for the jobs, but it was something that they needed and I helped them create. Back then, web design was not really a thing. The web was just starting out and it had a lot of limitations, and Flash was really big back in the day. So I learned how to do this type of work on my own. I designed it and developed it all by trial and error. 5 years later, you fast forward that to 2006. I moved to Florida, where I still am, and got a job working in the hospitality industry. During that time, I designed a lot of websites, a lot of web banners, a lot of Flash websites, a lot of Flash web banners. And it was eye-opening to see how this particular company worked. It was not one of the best places that I worked in, but it was still a learning lesson as it was my first true corporate type of job. Not long after I started working that job, I saw an opportunity to work for EA Sports. I have always been a big fan of video games since I was a child. And video games were a huge part of my upbringing, of my childhood. When I saw the opportunity to work for EA Sports, I jumped on it. Keep in mind, when I worked for EA, Zoom was never around. So everything was either an in-person interview or over the phone. The job was only supposed to be 3 weeks. Now, those 3 weeks turned into 3 months. 3 months became 6, and 6 became 5 years later. And the reason why they told me that they turned me full time after the first 6 months was because of my attitude. They liked me so much, and they always said that I had a can-do attitude, which is very important when you work for a company. The one thing that I always say that it's really funny about that job is that I got that job sight unseen. They never saw me in person. It was all over the phone until the very first day when I first started. I had a lot of fun working there. It was great. It was grueling work because back in the day, when worked at A, we would spend probably about a month or two out of the year working 65 plus hours a week. Now, keep in mind, this is years ago. They no longer do this, but it was part of the culture. It was part of the amount of work that it took to create these video games. I'm sure things are different now as far as the workflow of how they do things, but nevertheless, that's how it was. It was a lot of work. It was exhausting. But man, I had fun. We played around and we worked hard and played hard. And it was an experience that I have yet to experience since then. Unfortunately, like many good things, this came to an end when I was laid off. This was by far one of the hardest things that I had to go through in my recent career because I really loved that job. Yeah, it was not perfect, but it was a great experience and I would never change it for the world. The team that I worked with was far above any other team that I've worked with since then. We supported each other through a lot of those rough times and we worked together very well as a team. Not to say that I haven't worked with great teams since then, but that team is still the best. When I lost this job, it was really eye-opening for me because I was devoted and loyal to my job and the company. But having been part of that layoff changed everything for me from there on. Stopped caring about my work and I stopped caring about putting so much time and effort into something or a company when at the end of the day, they never shared that kind of loyalty with me. It was very difficult to get over that loss. And thankfully, this was during a time when being able to find a job was a lot easier than how it is in today's world. I was not competing with hundreds of people for one particular role. So I was able to bounce back in less than a month. After this particular role ended, I ended up getting just a short-term contract for a TV show. This was a news variety type of show that aired at 6 o'clock in the morning. So that meant that I had to be up by 4 o'clock in the morning, out the door by 4:30, and be in the studio by 5 so I could begin creating the graphics. I kid you not, I spent so much time and effort working on these graphics and being in a loud room where people are always talking and the crazy deadlines that I had to work on. And when I worked on this job, it was during the Boston Marathon bombing and the movie theater shooting that happened when the movie Batman came out. I think it was Batman Returns when that shooting happened. And it was a lot. I had never experienced that before, and it was just stressful because I not only had to be up early in the morning, but then I will have to come in and rush the work, rush the job, and just try to get things done as quickly as possible without any mistakes. I will say this though, that job really helped me get incredibly fast and good with Photoshop because I had to turn over so many graphics in such a short amount of time that I created so many shortcuts and so many customizations for Photoshop that I was able to do with it all under 30 minutes. Yeah, it was a lot of work. But thankfully, that schedule came to an end because let's face it, who wants to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to be in at work by 5 and be yelled at all the time? So when that came to an end, I ended up getting a job with a small gaming studio called Nspace. That was another fun job. I ended up working on some games that unfortunately never got published. This was due to the publisher pulling out the funding for the games. But nevertheless, it was really cool to see like the art directors acting out the movement for a game and how a game should interact, and seeing all these great things that we were doing at the time. It was eye-opening. It was an incredible experience to have done for as long as I did. Unfortunately, like EA, this was yet again another layoff. The company ended up going under. So I remember my experience was a lot different than what you would assume for it to be these days, because everybody was in the office. This was no remote work at the time. And we were divided into groups. One group was staying and one group was going. One group would go to the owner or president, and the other would go to the head of the studio. I think that's what the titles, but you get the idea. It was so gut wrenching to know who was getting cut and who was staying. And seeing people being called into those rooms and then walking out was heartbreaking, because we're witnessing someone's life being changed in that moment, and not for the better. Thankfully, after I lost that job, I was able to get another job with AAA, which was yet again another contract role. And that was cool. It was a really huge culture shock, because working at Nspace was a video game company. And then I would go into AAA, which is a company that's been around for decades. And they still, at the time, they still operated in the same sense, where it was very outdated. The building was outdated, and there were a lot of things that were outdated, but there was a small group of people that were trying to change it. And that's the team that I was a part of. I ended up doing a lot of web design. That's when responses first started happening. So I started doing a lot of responsive design, and it was cool. It was really cool to have had a team like I did. My lead at the time was incredible. He was a great guy, very helpful, very compassionate. And he was the type of person that always taught me a lot and helped me a lot. There was another individual that I worked with there that him and I we were not really part of the same team, but he taught me a lot about grid systems and the importance of it all. And that was really cool to learn from someone else that's really doing it. And his designs were also impeccable. They were beautiful to look at, and they were just clean and simple, but they were nicely organized. And that's one thing I ended up learning from him. Once that contract ended, I was yet again on the path to finding a new role. That's when I ended up landing the job with a company called Novatus. That was a contract management software company, and it was my first job doing B2B design. Keep in mind that this was back in 14. So this was 11 years ago. We would do a lot of things that were fun. We would watch TV while we worked. We would shoot Nerf guns at each other. We would throw darts at each other. It was, we had fun. We played hard yet again, and we worked hard. I remember there were 2 years in a row that I was asked to direct their conference. I had to create the intro videos, and then I also had to direct the way the room was going to look with the team. And that was a really, really cool experience to have done that, because that was the first time that I ever did that. It was really cool to do that, and I had a lot of fun and learned a lot from it too. I got really good with After Effects and getting better with color theory, because I wanted to set the tone, set the mood for the conference. And having been standing up there with the company that was doing the lighting and me directing them on what to do, it was a really cool experience, and the team was super helpful, and they taught me a lot as well. But like I said, all good things come to an end, right? I ended up losing that job because the company got acquired. So a lot of changes were being made, and unfortunately, that change was my job as well. I was out of a job for about, I don't know, roughly maybe 2 months at most. And I ended up getting the call from a recruiter about a job with the Orlando Magic. And I got to tell you, that was very interesting job for me, because I had to go back to being a web designer and working for an NBA team. I was really shocked when I walked around the office and saw all this memorabilia and all these pictures. And every now and then I would see a player walk by. It was very rare, but it would happen. And having been a part of that and being part of that marketing team was really cool. And it gave me a lot of appreciation for people that work in marketing. The things that these people have to come up with and create. But it was just something that was really, really cool to have experienced. And I'm very grateful that happened. One of the things that this reminds me of is that it is very interesting to see how sometimes life puts us in a situation where one door closes and another one opens right away, because the same day that I was told that my contract was not going to be renewed was the same exact day that I got the job with NBC Sports. That job was also something that I really enjoyed. The company had a lot of great perks. It had a lot of great people that I'm still friends with till this day. I got to work on a lot of cool things that many people use. That was probably one of the major experiences that I had doing a lot of user research and working on many different aspects of UX because of the type of job that it was. One of the things that I take a lot of pride in from this job is that I was told by a business analyst that worked at the time with the company that the iPad application that I was working on needed to be redesigned and updated because one of the major clients that they had was not happy with the application and they were considering going with somebody else. Keep in mind that this division of the Golf Channel that I worked in was more about creating software for golf courses. And the software would help golf courses manage their inventory, be able to check people in when they want to play around the golf. They also help them sell their products from the store in the clubhouse. And they had the iPad app that was the food and beverage app that was used in the restaurants. And this app was also used in the golf course by the rangers that would drive around in the golf course. I started to really care about my work in this place. I started to devote a lot of my energy into it because the people that I work with, certain managers in that place, helped me really understand the importance of what we did in that place. And all of those things added up. And it made me really grateful to have worked there. It is important to know that if you're a manager and you care about your team and you care about the work that they do, you must be a mentor to these people because not everybody is going to be great at what they do. Not everybody is going to have a good day, but if you're a good leader and you're a good manager, you will help them through it. And unfortunately, the managers that did this for me were not my direct managers, but there were also people that I counted on and that I relied upon and were very great at what they did. And I was very grateful to have spent the time with them and the many conversations and challenges that they helped me get over. When I left this job, it was right at the beginning of lockdown, right before the pandemic. And I was able to get a contract job for a little bit because it was back in the video game industry that I loved. And it was with people that I had worked with in the past. And it was fun. It was stressful at times, especially with the pandemic and the nature of it all and the lockdown and everything else. It was very stressful because of everything that was going on in the world. But nevertheless, it was an experience and it was something that I enjoyed and took pride in. You know, working in video games has been something that I've always thoroughly enjoyed. But I had to leave because that place was going under, which they ended up shutting down the studio. I ended up taking a leap of faith and going into an industry that I had never, ever been a part of in any way whatsoever, and that was the government space. Having seen some of the designs of the applications that I worked in was very eye-opening and very challenging all at once. I was very fortunate to have gone from an individual contributor to a manager. During that time as a leader working for this company, which is, by the way, my last company that I worked in, was probably one of the most challenging but yet rewarding things that I have ever accomplished. I was a manager of 6 designers, 2 graphic designers, 2 UX designers, and 2 UI designers. When I took this role as a manager, I took it because I wanted that progression in my career. Yeah, I was a lead before that, but being a manager is a little bit different because I was responsible for hiring folks. I was responsible for their career, and I was responsible for overall for everything that they did. And I took a lot of pride in that because that's always been one of the things that I enjoy the most, and that's being a mentor and helping others grow. When I was interviewing for the internship program, I interviewed quite a few candidates, and I knew that when I was interviewing them, I was not going to get top notch work because they were just interns, they were just starting out. So I took that into consideration. When I was interviewing these individuals, I had to take a lot of things into perspective. They were nervous. This was their first time doing this type of work, and I was not expecting them to be 100% perfect. So I looked at their portfolios, but I never really focused on their work. I focused more on their personality. I have always been a firm believer that anybody could be taught how to do a job, but you cannot teach them how to be a good person, a good team player. And I was very fortunate to have hired the right candidate for this role. She was first an intern, and then she was turned into a full-time employee, and seeing her grow as a designer during these years was very rewarding for me because I know what she was like at the beginning based on her portfolio, and then seeing her towards the end of my time there was very rewarding to have seen her grow and flourish to become such a great designer, not just from a UI perspective, but also from a UX perspective. Because during this time that we all worked together, I was overseeing 20 different applications. And when you have a team like I did, where they work hard and they know what they're doing and they're professionals and they all come together and support one another, you can't buy that. Experience cannot bring that along. That's personality. These people did not know each other. None of them knew each other, actually, with the exception of one person, but that was it. Nobody else knew each other, and they built a bond that was incredible. And I was very proud to have put this team together because they were all great people, hard workers, supportive, respectful, and we always would come together as a team and figure problems out. I never made a major decision without discussing it with the team first. Granted, ultimately the decisions were mine, but it was a collaborative effort to figure things out as we went along. This was something that was all new to me, and I have always been of the mentality that we work together through the problems and figure it all out as a team. Not individuals, but as a team. Not one of them ever said to me that that's not my job. That has always been one of the things that I've always hated when people told me that, because I've never said that to anyone. I will never be the type of person that says that's not my job. I have always been a believer that whenever someone is part of a team, we work together and we do whatever it takes to get the team ahead. It's not about the individuals, it's about the team. And I was very grateful to have cultivated that culture within the team. They all learned a lot from me, and I learned a lot from them too. It was not just me teaching them, but they taught me a lot too. They taught me what it's like to be a leader. They taught me patience, resilience, and care for people that I barely even knew. I'm very grateful about them, about that team. I'm still close with most of them, and I think I still will be for years to come. My career has been filled with great experiences, a lot of lessons learned. Every negative experience that I've had throughout my career has been a learning experience. It has taught me to be better. It has made me who I am. And I would never change that for the world. Unfortunately, like many people out there, I am also unemployed, and that's okay. Yes, am I stressed about it? Absolutely. But do I have the proper support behind me? Absolutely. I could not do this without the support and love of my wife. I could spend time and efforts every single day stressing out about the fact that I don't have a job or I can't land a role or that I'm applying for hundreds of jobs every month. But that's energy wasted. Instead, I'm choosing to focus on my health, my schooling, my business, and my future. I've decided to take advantage of this time and learn new things and focus on me, focus on learning some new skills that I didn't have before. Obviously, with the rapid growth of AI, I want to keep up with it. So I'm learning about AI and how to work with it and things like that. But just like everything else, this is just part of the journey. The journey is not always supposed to be fun. It's not always going to be perfect, but it is what we make of it. Life is not easy. Life can be very challenging at times, but every single scenario that we go through, it makes us who we are. So I will end this episode with this. Who are you? What has life taught you? And have you learned from it? Thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who might need a little extra inspiration. And remember, every small step you take is a step towards a better you. I can't wait to chat with you next time about more self-development tips and practical ways to turn obstacles into opportunities. Until then, be kind to yourself, and remember, your thoughts don't define you. You do. Onward, forward.